Everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Karen Burchill, Creative Katie. Today we are going to do an art journal step by step. So here are the supplies that I end up using. Of course, I didn't know I was going to use all of these at the beginning. We're using a color scheme of Naples yellow and cadmium red. I've got a napkin, a stamp, a sentiment, and a stencil. First off, we need to prep the page, and we prep the page with a coat of white gesso. I just buy economy white gesso from a local art store. Second, you want to add color. Because I've primed this with the white gesso, these colors are going to blend more easily. Oh, oops, I got some black paint on it. And here's why we do gesso. It's going to make it easier to erase things that you don't want there. So I've added a little bit of water and I can remove most of that black paint that I inadvertently got on there. So let's get back to adding the color. I am blending it wet and wet, the Naples yellow and the cadmium red. And I know I can do that because yellow and red are going to make kind of an orange or peachy corally color that I know I'm going to love. If you're unsure if your colors are going to make a color you like, just do a little test on the side before you're doing it on the page. As I was saying, because there's gesso on there, it seals the paper somewhat, so the paint is not soaking into the paper, and that allows you to blend those colors and get this mottled look. I don't need this to be precise. I'm coming back, I'm adding more color, more cadmium red, more Naples yellow. Now, the Naples yellow is very opaque. It kind of blocks out what's behind it. There's a lot of white in it. The cadmium red is very translucent. So you'll see me coming in with more of the cadmium red to build up the intensity of the color. Now, at this stage of the game, I had no idea what focal point I was using. I just wanted to use these colors and have some fun doing it. And quite often, that's how I start my pages. I figure it out as I go along. And sometimes that means you may repeat steps as you're going to see. You just kind of have to respond to what's happening on the page. So the next thing that I'm going to do here, I am going to glue on this DIY tissue collage paper. This is just regular dollar store tissue paper that I've done some stamping on. The flower part, that is just a squeezed toilet paper roll that I dipped in black paint and stamped on it, and then I used some script stamp there. Now, the reason you may want to use tissue paper here is you can audition it. You can put it in its where you want it and see if you are going to like it. When you glue it down with the fluid matte medium, it goes translucent. So the color or anything that you've had behind it is going to show through. Now, I ripped up my tissue collage paper and pretty much ended up gluing it down as a whole sheet. You could do either or. But I really like the way those colors in the background shine through. The secret there when you're using tissue paper is use a lot of the matte medium or Mod Podge or decoupage or whatever you're using. The tissue paper also adds a certain amount of texture to it. So you've got a pattern, texture, and you've been able to audition it and get a really good idea of whether you're going to like it where all those patterns are going to end up. Now I want to stencil with white, and this is the Garden Gate stencil, which I love. It's from the Crafters Workshop. There's a link at their Shopify store down below, and I'm just using plain white acrylic paint, titanium white, and I'm trying to create a little bit of movement as I go across the page. Now, again, when I'm at this stage, I don't know what's coming next. I don't know what focal point. I don't even have an idea of focal point. I'm kind of going a little bit floral, so I'm thinking I may be looking for a floral focal image, which is exactly the way I went. But I could have used a magazine picture. I could have used a lot of different things. I was just interested in creating a background that I love. And sometimes I create backgrounds and I leave it as them as backgrounds for a while until I come up with the exact right focal image. So don't feel pressured to finish a page into completion. Sometimes let it sit for a while. So this was actually the next day, and I'm choosing a focal image. And look at this lovely poppy. This is huge poppy. It's from a napkin. I had it cut out, and this would have looked lovely on here. I also found another poppy napkin. Both of these napkins come from NINNYSNAPKINS.com, and there's a description or a link to NINNYSNAPKINS.com, a coupon code in the description box below. I'm really liking the colors of this. It has that yellow, it has the kind of cadmium or alizarin crimson or cadmium red. So I've chosen this one, but either one would have worked. Now I'm cutting off what I don't want. There are elements on that napkin that I don't want, so I'm just using my liner brush with a little bit of water and I'm water cutting. So this is eliminating the parts that I don't want, isolating the parts that I do, and getting rid of the excess as well as giving it a deckled edge, which is going to disappear a little bit more readily and be less noticeable on your art journal page. So I'm just working my way around. Now, when you are water cutting and isolating what you want, start with what you absolutely know you don't want. Get rid of it. If you're unsure, leave it. Keep going, doing what you know is going to go, and then come back to make that final decision. And you can take it back on the page. I love how the colors of the background really seem to work with these beautiful watercolor poppies. Now, I don't think this napkin is available any longer at NINNYSNAPKINS.com. I wish she would get it in because they're absolutely beautiful. But there are lots of poppy napkins available and lots of floral napkins that would work as well. Now, again, follow the steps that I'm using. If you have a different napkin, if you've used different background colors, that's fine. You can create your own unique page following the steps that I have. So now, if I glue that napkin down as it is, those black marks that are underneath may show through and discolor things. So what I'm going to do is white out the area that I'm going to right underneath where the napkin's going to be glued down. And I just grabbed a Stabilo All pencil in white and I'm just marking where the napkin is going to sit. And that just gives me an idea of where I'm going to apply a coat of white gesso. I think it would have worked out all right if I had skipped this step and just glued my napkin down because I did end up overpainting on top of the poppies. And if any black showed through, I could have hidden that. So sometimes there are more than one way to get to the same destination. So I think I cost myself a little bit more work here, but in the end, I'm doing art and I'm enjoying it. So now that once that's dry, I'm going to glue it down, glue my napkin down with, I use Fluid Matte Medium from Liquitex. I prefer this over decoupage or Mod Podge, but you could use what works for you or what you have in your stash. Don't feel you need to go out and buy the specific products that I am using. Now, here's what I said, saving myself steps. Because I whitened the area underneath where the poppy napkin was gluing down, those spaces in between the poppy are, you guessed it, white. So now I need to colorize that because it looks funny being white. There's no, I've lost any pattern that's there, and I just feel better with it being colored. So I'm reapplying the background color in these white areas, and I'm just using a small flat brush, and I'm mixing a little bit of the cadmium red, a little bit of the Naples yellow, a little bit of white gesso, and just covering it in. I'm not being too careful. I'm rubbing it. I'm adding more color. It works. But if I was doing it again, like I said, I would just glue the napkin down without whiting out that area and then overpaint the poppies, which is what I'm going to be doing in a minute anyways. When you are doing an art journal page, a lot of the time you are simply responding to what's happened on the page. You are solving problems one at a time. So here I'm just applying a little bit more color on top of this just to have the background all work together. Remember, when I made my background, I had no idea what focal image I was going to do. So now I'm going to overpaint on top of where the poppies are. And I'm using colors that are similar. I'm using cadmium yellow, Naples yellow, adding some white gesso, cadmium red, and some orange. I'm just tweaking the colors, brightening the colors of those poppies so they stand up against a um, very much the same background colors. So I want the poppies to be able to stand out. And by making them bolder and brighter, by adding more color, I think I achieve that. So all the things that I'm doing to those poppies now, I'm doing so that they stand out from the background. Now, as I'm over painting, it becomes more, well, painterly. It looks more like I've actually painted those poppies by hand as opposed to me gluing down a napkin. And I like that look. I am not being precise here. And I want you to know that if you start over painting on napkins, at first it's really, really scary to do that. It's like, oh, what if I wreck it? Well, what if you do? Big deal. It's a napkin and you've had some fun and you've learned some things. The less you worry about it, the freer you are, the more it turns out. Especially when you have focal images that are very watercolory and not exactly precise. So here I'm just going around and I'm tweaking the colors. I grabbed some deep violet on that one lower poppy right here, and I'm adding that with some gesso and mixing those colors. I don't even need to keep it exactly the same color that they are. I can alter it as I see fit for my page. Some of the petals are getting bigger as I paint. It's all part of the process. I'm using what the artist from the napkin has given me as a stepping stone, and then I'm doing my own thing, making it my own. After it's dry, here I'm putting some of the green in. So I use the bright green yellow, and then I come in with Hooker's green. Now, I have sped up the video a little bit here, but I am not fussing. I am not being too precious with this. I'm being very loose with my brush, trying to maintain that watercolory look. I'm darkening the inner parts of the poppy with just some black paint that I'm dotting in there. And then I do splatter with black paint. I come back and I splatter later as a step. Now I'm going to fine tune my background. It's been a bit of a journey. I've added some color to the background and I lost some of the stenciling and I wanted more of that in. So I replace the stencil, place it on there, and add more stenciling with the white paint. Now that I know what focal image is here, I know exactly where I want the patterning to be, and I'm brightening some of those colors, some of the white, making it a little bit more opaque. Again, this is personal choice. What do I like? That's what I'm going to do. If you like less, then don't put as much as me. This like kind of looks like it's a field of poppies, some closer, some further back. Just very, very floral garden themed. And the colors are amazing. Now I'm going to edge the page. I'm going to frame the page, and this is the first step of several things that I do in order to frame the page. Each one I kind of add the other two because in the end I wasn't completely happy with this. So you're fine tuning, you're adding those fine details, finishing it up. Regardless of how you edge that page, edging the page, it frames it. It kind of closes it in. The black that I typically use ties in with the sentiment and it ties in with the black of the poppies. Since I had my angle brush and the black paint, I decided to shade the poppies here. I'm just pretending, trying to figure out where might the petals be, the folds of the petals, and I'm just adding a little bit of shading here. Again, it's very random. I'm just guessing, quite honestly. This is another step that while I have it and it gives a certain effect, I would have left this out. If I was to do this again, I would leave this out and go to the other ways right here, adding sketchy lines with my General's charcoal pencil. I would have preferred had just to have adding these sketchy lines to it and not have putting the shading. But again, that's personal preference. I'm showing you two ways. I ended up doing both. Um, each has their different pluses and minuses. But again, I'm just adding sketchy lines. I'm holding my pencil very loosely. I'm not being precise. Some of it's not even going exactly on the edge of the petal. I find the sketchy lines with charcoal pencil goes really well with focal images that are watercolor. And I'm smudging it a little bit. Now you want to add a sentiment to it. I could stamp it with letter stamps. I use a sentiment out of my Through the Garden Gate sentiment pack. This is available for purchase. It's a digital download from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. Again, there's a link to Ninny's in the description box below. I'm just gluing this down with my fluid matte medium. I love all things flower and garden, so I make such good use of my garden ones. So here I'm going back and I'm softening the edge with my woodless charcoal pencil, the soft one. That's the one I grabbed here. I rub it on and then smudge it. This gives a softer look than edging it with the angle brush. And it just seemed to work better with the watercolor pencil. Then I shade around my sentiment using the same woodless charcoal pencil. And I thought I was done. I took off the tape. I'm looking at it, and then I think, nope, nope, it needs something else. So I put the tape back and I grab my splatter paint and I decide I'm going to splatter with gold. I'm going to add some bling to this. I thought these deep, rich colors, the gold will look amazing on it, and it does. So I splattered with gold, and then I decided to add more splatters with black. Now my black paint had been sitting for a while. It had thickened a little bit, so I'm off the side. I'm adding water and just rethinning it. Is that a word? And splattering with black. I think the splatters just makes everything work together. Then I grab my fine line applicator and I'm adding more line work, just very sketchy lines around the page. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I wanted my border to stand out a little bit more. I thought I needed more weight there, and so that's what I'm doing. So every time you do something, it's like, okay, am I done? Does it look good? Does it need something else? And you're asking yourself those things. And don't worry, the more pages you do, the more you're able to make those decisions. So there is the finished page. Those deep, rich colors are great. Wait, there's more. Sometimes you just never know when you're done. And I decided that my background needed some script stamp. The script stamp that I had on that original tissue paper has been all obliterated, so I decided to add it back in. I love me some script on there, and I'm using my black archival ink and just stamping it here and there just to add one more detail to this gorgeous, gorgeous art journal page. And now I promise you, I am done. And I hope you love it as much as I do. So get out your stamps and stencils, tissue paper and napkin, and go get creative. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful.